Good morning. I've got 10 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome all of you here to the Perkins orientation for 2017. This orientation is designed for people that are new to the Perkins grant, so new project directors and new institutional contacts. But beyond that, we have people that like to come some year after year, and that's fine. We used to do this in a much smaller room, and then we realized that the demand was greater than we had anticipated, and so we have expanded it to our boardroom. It's also being broadcast today so that others around the state can be watching it on their campuses. And so hello to all of you. The day will be jam-packed with information. We had you, when you came in, start off by taking a pretest. We don't want your names on this. This is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of us and how well we've taught the things that we want you to understand. So for those of you that have been here and had a chance to complete that, go ahead and pass that in, and Elizabeth will work to pick that up. At the end, you're going to see the same thing again, and hopefully you'll know all the answers for sure by then. This also hopefully will get your mind set on some of the concepts we will be covering. If you are brand new to Perkins, congratulations on your new role, and the Perkins staff here at the coordinating board look forward to working with you. My name is Donna Carlin, and I'm the post-secondary state director for Texas. I've been in this role since 2010, and I would like for the other staff that work with Perkins to introduce themselves and give us a little brief introduction about what they do with the grant.
Good morning. I'm Mindy Nobles. I advise 23 grants. I work on the basic RFA every year, and I do other duties as assigned with Perkins. We all do a little bit of everything, and welcome to you all.
Hello, I'm Dwayne Hiller. I'm program director here, also in workforce. I handle a whopping 7, I think, grants, plus about 2 leadership grants. And I also have duties with the WECM Advisory Committee, the WECM Leadership Committee, and several program of study subcommittees.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Steele. I am also a program director here with the coordinating board. I don't know the number off the top of my head of how many projects I help oversee, but I love working with all of y'all. I also work with programs of study and fields of study as well, and as Mindy stated, other duties as assigned. So we really hope that you all feel that this workshop is very beneficial, and that you have a lot of takeaways from it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think it's important to know who's here in the room, so we're going to pass around a microphone, and we ask that you tell us 4 things. 1, your name, what institution you're from, your role with Perkins, and how long you've been in that role.
Hi, I'm Henry Crosby. I work in the Office of Academic Affairs at Tarrant County College in Fort Worth. I've been working with Perkins maybe 2 years. I work with ordering equipment and making sure paperwork is in, that sort of thing.
I'm Debbie Shaw. I'm the Assistant Director of the Perkins Grant, and I too am from Tarrant County College, and I've been in that role for about 2 years as well.
Ebony Dennis, Kilgore College, Project Director for the Basic Grant, 3 years.
Luana Hernandez, Coastal Bend College, and Assistant Dean of Allied Health, so I help with the Perkins Grant for the Allied Health side.
Angelica Cancino Sandoval. I'm with Austin Community College, manager in special populations, and I'll be taking over the grant. So I've only been working with it for about 1.5 years.
Good morning. My name is Diane Carrasco. I'm the Dean of Career Tech and Workforce Education at Odessa College. So I oversee the budgets that do all the requests through Perkins, and I just started in this role. I've been with the college for a while, but that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
I'm Kara Smart, and I'm from Odessa College. I'm curriculum articulation specialist. I've been working with Perkins for about 3 years, but this will be my first year as the project director.
Connie May, Odessa College. I serve as the SACS liaison for our institution and also as executive director for institutional effectiveness. I have served as the director for our Perkins grant at the college for 3 years now, and next year we'll pass that baton on to Miss Kara.
I'm Mary Chance, Panola College, and I've been with this in this role, grants coordinator, since 2000.
I'm Stacy G. from Panola College. I work in the Student Success Center at Panola, and one of my duties is being project director for Perkins, and I've been doing this for about 6 years.
I'm Kathy Hossie from Lamar Institute of Technology. I work as the administrative associate, and I've been doing it for about 1.5 years.
My name is Pat Calhoun. I'm with Lamar Institute of Technology. I'm the Executive Director of Workforce Education. I've been the project manager for our Perkins grant for the last 3 years.
My name is Sheila Trahan. I'm from Lamar State College, Port Arthur. I've been the Perkins project director for 2 years, and I'm the Dean of Technical Education.
My name is Tamara Clunis. I'm the Vice President of Academic Affairs with Amarillo College. I am the Project Director for Perkins, and I've been in this role for 7 months.
Hello, I'm Diana Terry. I am with Lee College, and I'm the Industrial and Technical Studies Counselor and the Perkins Project Director.
Hi, I'm Eileen Hamby from Navarro College. I'm the Executive Dean of Career and Technical Education, and I have this great team next to me from Perkins in my division.
Hello, I'm Teresa Sutton. I'm with Navarro College. I'm the Career and Technical Associate, and I've been in the Perkins office for 2 years.
I'm Susan Womack. I'm with Navarro College. I'm the Perkins Director of the Carl D. Perkins Career Center that we have at the college, and I've been there for 2 years.
Good morning. Alexander Okwana, Dean of Natural Science and Health Science with Sanderson College, and I am sitting second chair and working and assisting with Perkins this year.
I'm Brandon Washington from Texarkana College, Dean of Workforce, and this is my 3rd week on the job, so this is all very brand new to me. But as many of you know, it's all right, little gnat chasing me. Many of you know Rhonda Dozier. I'll be replacing her as the dean, and she's been very helpful in teaching me along the way.
I'm Leslie Keeling Olson, and I'm the Division Director of Business and Career Professions at Temple College, and I'm also the Perkins Basic Grant Director for the last 10 years.
Hi, I'm Kinsey Benefield. I'm with Blinn College. I've been working under the Perkins grant for almost 7 years now, basically with the health sciences programs as the facilitator for that, helping write the actual grant application for probably about the last 5 years. And now pretty much the primary writer on that, and I will be moving into programs manager position this next year. So the boss sent me here.
Good morning. My name is Jill Lane, and I'm with Mountain View College with Dallas County Community College District. I officially start on our Perkins grant on Monday. So I can promise you I made a big fat 0 on that pretest. I know absolutely nothing because I just got responsibility for it, so I am thrilled to be here.
My name is Leticia Blanco. I'm assistant to the Dean of Health Sciences at Laredo Community College. We're just going to start working with the Carl Perkins grant.
My name is Sandra Rodriguez, Laredo Community College, also with the Dean of Health Sciences, and again, assisting the Dean on the grant.
Good morning. My name is Alfredo Iñiguez Jimenez. I am the Dean of Health Sciences for Laredo Community College. Through reorganization, I'm taking over the grant starting sometime in the fall from Dr. Fred Solis, who you might recall.
Arlene Atkins, Weatherford College. I'm the Dean of IE,
and the Perkins contact. Would you believe I've been doing this for 19 years, and I still have questions, and Elizabeth still calls me.
Stephanie Fields, Weatherford College. I work in the business office and submitting the expenditure reports and stuff, and I've been doing it for 2 years.
Van Wigington, I'm the provost at San Jacinto College Central Campus. I've been working with Perkins all of 7 days, and it took Alexander and myself to fill the void of Catherine O'Brien, who was our lead for Perkins.
Susan Cannon at Collin College. I am the project manager for Perkins and a few other grants, and I've been doing it for 7 months.
Hi, I'm Cheryl George Jones, and I am the program director for Houston Community College, and I've been doing it for 3 years.
Karina Sanchez, I work with Houston Community College, working with Cheryl as the office manager.
Good morning, Victor Gomez, program manager, work with Cheryl George Jones, Houston Community College.
And we've had some folks slip in since the microphone came this way. Let me it won't work, folks. You still have to introduce yourselves. Let me hand this to you, and we'll pass it down the way. Should I start with you then? Sure. Here you go.
I didn't want to scare him there. Hi, my name's Angelica Fuentes. I'm from Texas Southmost College. I'm the interim vice president of instruction, as well as the dean of college preparatory studies. And I was, it was a gift. The grant was a gift to me last year when the vice president of instruction left that position. And I have here, so 1 year as program director, and I will be writing it for the first time this year.
Oh. I'm also from Texas Southmost College. I'm Prissy Tipton, and just like Dr. Fuentes, this is my first year on the grant, managing and just, it was other duties as assigned, but it's been a very, very good experience for us.
Good morning. My name is Murad Abu Salim. I'm the interim dean of STEM and CTE division at Texas Southmost College, and I'm assuming I'm going to be receiving the gift from Dr. Fuentes starting today. So thank you very much for having us.
I like that. Again.
One more. Good morning. I'm Dr. Hackett from Central Texas College, and grant coordinator position fell onto me. I lost my grant coordinator, so I'm here to learn everything I can.
So thank you and welcome again. As you've heard, we have a real range of experience in the room, from haven't started yet, minus a week, to 19 years. So we will try to accommodate all of your needs here. But again, this is basic orientation for people that are brand new is really the focus. So we are happy the staff will be here all day to answer any of your individualized questions that you may have in case we don't get to your specific needs. We certainly don't want you to leave without being able to ask your questions. Even though this is a large room, we hope that this can be informal. We will have microphones to go around and answer questions as we go along. So I'm going to start this off by saying, as you all know, this is a federal grant. The Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Improvement Act was signed into law by Congress in 2006 for a period of 6 years. So if you do the math, we are long overdue for reauthorization. And I'll be getting to that towards the end. It is coming. There has been some movement. However, it is funded annually. It's been funded annually with a continued resolution since 2013 as we wait reauthorization. The purpose really is to enhance career and technical education at both the secondary and the post-secondary level. And it's to prepare students for high-skill, high-wage, and high-demand occupations in current or emerging professions. I want to give you a snapshot of what's happening nationally. Every year I go to a training for the Perkins State Directors, and this is one of the slides that was provided by OCTE, which is the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education at the U.S. Department of Ed, and be thinking about how this relates to your institution. So nationally, we're seeing a slight decrease from 2008 to 2009 until 15-16 overall in the number of career and technical education concentrators at the institutions nationally, so about a 0.5% decrease. However, male enrollment is up, and again, I want you to be thinking about, is that true at your institutions? And female enrollment is down 5.54%. It might be kind of hard to see, but the largest programs are in health, and these are in the thousands, so at 515,000, business as well. And then the largest growth for the programs, to me, was surprising in finance as well as information technology. So I wanted to show you then what's happening in Texas, which is, there have been drops. There's been an overall drop in concentrators by 20% during that same time period, with a decrease in males and in females especially. For Texas, the largest number of concentrators, this may be no surprise, is in health, business, and manufacturing. And the largest growth has been, this was a surprise to me, in agriculture, in hospitality, and in manufacturing as well. So one of the things I neglected to mention is that we will send you all these slides when the conference is over so that you'll have all of them. This slide really gives an overview of how money is allocated to the state of Texas. The money for Perkins from the U.S. Department of Ed goes to TEA. And in turn, TEA gets 70% of the funds for secondary education, and the coordinating board gets 30% of the funds. Of that money, 85% of the money goes to the basic grant. So that's that allocation, and I'll talk in a minute about how the money's allocated to you, but that's included in the RFA, how much money your institution will receive for next year. So again, that's 85%. The total amount of funding that we receive at the coordinating board is $27 million. So actually the grant was much larger at 70 plus million, but the majority, or 70% of those funds, went to TEA for CTE. Of that money, administration for the coordinating board to administer this grant is 5%. Leadership grants, and I'll be talking about them, can be up to 10%, and that's a competitive grant program for projects that will have a statewide impact. We can spend up to 10%, which would equal about $2.7 million, and we base that on the proposals that we receive, and we usually don't spend that much money. It's usually a little over $1 million. And of course, the basic grant with 85% gave us $23 million for next year. We can also use our basic reserve that comes out of basic, and it can be used up to 10% of the funds for basic. We have started using that. During our last site visit by the U.S. Department of Ed, they really encouraged us to use our reserve money for special projects. So we have been using that. Last year, we contributed $1 million to the Innovative Academies, formerly called the CTE Early College High School Initiative. It was changed, the title of it was changed this year, but that's basically what the initiative was. So we have funded special projects like that with our reserve. So how we determine each year how much your college gets is based on a formula. And I'm sure you've noticed sometimes you have increases and sometimes you have decreases from the prior year. A number of schools had decreases. It is based on self-reported data that's certified by your institutions. It's based on the number of full-time equivalent students who are enrolled in CTE programs that are Pell Grant recipients. So if you know that you've had a decrease in the number of students that are CTE students that receive Pell, you know there's been a decrease, you may see a lower amount for your allocation. Alternatively, if you've seen an increase in the number of Pell students, you'll see a larger allocation. But that's the formula that's run every year. So at the end of the year, it used to be that all the money that's unspent, and there is money unspent, which always surprises me. So please, as a takeaway, I really want to urge you to spend your money. It is important, though, that especially for things like major equipment, that you get that in as soon as possible after your application is approved, to start spending the money, especially for large equipment purchases of capital, which is usually defined as $5,000 or greater, unless your institution has a different threshold for that, and some do. It may be $3,000 at a college, but for the most part, it's $5,000. We want you to get that equipment in and get it in use during the grant year. If you wait until the end of the year, that can sometimes become a problem because, we want to make sure you have it in, that students are using the equipment, especially for the capital. The change that we have is that only institutions that have met 3 of the Perkins core indicators, 2P1, 3P1, and 4P1, are eligible for the reallocation funds. It used to go back and be run through the formula, go back out to everyone, but then we made a change, and this was also encouraged by the U.S. Department of Ed, and it's in line with some of the things that the coordinating board has done as far as funding for higher performing projects. So last year, I believe we had 21 institutions that were eligible for the reallocation. Do you remember, Elizabeth? 24. So please keep that up, keep your progress up, and we'll be talking about all the core indicators as we go along. So a question to you, at the end of the year, if you have $50,000 left that's unspent, will that automatically go back to you? No, it doesn't. It all, because Perkins is based on, we don't give you the money up front. You submit your expenditure reports at least quarterly, and that's how you're paid. So the money, it's not like you're refunding the money to us. It's money that you didn't spend that we put into a pot and reallocate to those that meet the criteria. So funds are commonly used in these ways, working with special populations by doing things like purchasing textbooks or a loaning library, providing transportation, sometimes bus passes, sometimes gas vouchers. Child care is a big use, and it's been very helpful. The school set criteria for meeting the eligibility for this. It's usually based on the definition of special populations. Also, a large amount of money, sometimes that you have to increase it and submit amendments, is used for sign language interpreters. That's something that's commonly very costly for the colleges. And sometimes you overestimate the amount you'll need and then amend your applications to decrease that amount, which is fine to do that. Also, Perkins is commonly used for instructional equipment, including capital, although we do see a lot of the colleges that are participating in the JET grants. That's been very helpful and that's a state grant for purchasing equipment as well. A big use of funds is for guidance, counseling, CTE advisors, and tutors for career and technical education programs, as well as professional development, and my slide cut off there at the end, I'm sorry, both in-state and out-of-state travel. It's really an opportunity for your CTE faculty to attend those great conferences that may be occurring in Salt Lake City or Baltimore or wherever. So as long as it's CTE faculty, it's fine to use your funds in that way. So one of the things that was new with Perkins 4 is that the feds put in performance indicators. There are 6 of them. I think they felt that working with non-traditional students, be it women in welding or men in nursing or women in automotive, was important enough that that 2 of the core indicators relate to non-traditional participation and completion. I do want to notify you of a big change that just happened last week, and unfortunately, the RFA has already been published, but this is the change, and we will be sending out a notice to amend this. Every year, we negotiate with Octay for the performance indicators. They had already approved our collaboration or our negotiation, and they came back to us once that was closed, and they've never done this before, and they said for 2P1, that's that indicator for completion, the target had been approved at 33%. That was an increase from 32%, and they said that they had been directed by the new Assistant Secretary at the U.S. Department of Ed that any state that wasn't at 35% as a target for 2P1 had to renegotiate. So we did that, and so 35% is the new target. However, last year we met that. We would have met that within the 90%, because to meet a target means that you have to meet it within 90% of what the target is, and that's the same for you, and it's the same for us as well. So as a state, if we don't meet our targets, we have, just like you do, we have to submit a performance improvement plan that has to be approved by the U.S. Department of Ed, and then they'll monitor our progress. So for those, any schools, if you're not meeting 2P1 especially, it's really important that you know about this increase to the core indicators, and our staff will be carefully, reviewing your performance improvement plans in the application to make sure that you are, working to really improve that target, especially because we have this higher target. And this is the one that for 2 years in a row, back 2-3 years ago, we didn't meet as a state. So it's important to get that word out there that that's something we still need to work on. As I mentioned, part of the Perkins funds can go to leadership grants. The focus is on CTE that improve CTE on a statewide basis. So we're not looking for projects that will improve your individual colleges, but that will have a statewide impact that will be helpful for the state. We do like collaboration. We like that for you to work with at least one other college, sometimes business and industry, sometimes secondary and post-secondary collaborate. We see a lot of collaboration with that. These are under considerations. At this time, we had 14 pre-proposals. We do ask you to submit, the process that's been this way for a while is that you submit a pre-proposal. It's usually pretty brief. It's basically fleshing out what your idea is before we ask you to submit a full proposal. And so of those 14 pre-proposals, they went under review and consideration. 12 went forward for a full proposal, and final awards will be considered when they're submitted. I think the due date is July 11th. Yes. These are the projects that we have funded this year. You may have heard of some of them. What we did something a little bit different. We asked any of the projects that wanted to provide information to us about their projects to send it in. We do have a table up here that has information for the projects. I'm seeing a really cool one from Lone Star College. Their project has to do with working and validation of labor market analysis for submitting new programs. So this is a cool one. If you haven't looked at their project, please do that. For the leadership projects, we do ask that they submit and get approval to present at state and sometimes national conferences. So often you'll see a number of the leadership projects presented at the TACTI conferences and possibly TCCIL or other appropriate conferences related to the topic. In the interest of time, though, I do have to move along. I don't have time to go through each one of them, but I urge you to. There is a summary of all of them on the table there. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, please do so. And we will have Leslie Keeling-Olsen will be our lunch speaker. She's done a lot of work with the core indicators, especially the project that they did last year for 2P1, 3P1, 4P1. She does have some best practices ideas and some information about that grant that may be helpful to you, especially at this time as you're preparing your grant applications. As I mentioned already, we have been using our reserve funds. We had an initiative with the CTE Early College High School programs from 13 to 2016, where 4 projects were funded. And then last year, we contributed the $1 million for the initiative with TEA and TWC for the Innovative Academy, the next generation of early college high school grant programs. And I'm sure that we will continue to fund projects like that as we can with reserve. In 2014, the Uniform Grant Guidance went into effect, and this was really a combining of 8 Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, circulars into one large circular. As a result, EDGAR, which is the book where all of the information for the Uniform Grant Guidance is published, has been updated, and all institutions have been asked to update their policies and procedures and reference the UGG citations. Throughout the basic grant RFA, you'll see a number of references to the criteria. We could go over the Uniform Grant Guidance. It would be a whole nother full-day conference to talk about that. But if you have any specific questions about what's allowable, what's not, certainly we're always available to help you figure out the responses to those questions. For the basic grant, as we've discussed, the RFA is out there. It was posted on June 8th. The inquiry deadline is June 30th, so that's, tomorrow, and the questions have to come in to me. July 18th, the application deadline at 5 p.m. We do look at that, and if it's published in the RFA that's the deadline. We're not supposed to accept applications after that, so please be cognizant of that deadline. The July 25th is when the application cover page and the certifications are due, and then the grant period, of course, starts September 1st. Perkins reauthorization, very quickly, because I'm over my time. Last week on June 22nd, the House approved House Resolution 2353, the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act, which is the bill that would reauthorize Perkins. It was a bipartisan, unanimous approval for that, so we're really happy to hear about that. But it also happened, last fall, right before the presidential election. The same thing happened, and then things were stalled in the Senate. So we don't know how that will play out, but I think it's important to be watching that. Of course, everyone in here has an interest in Perkins, and we hope that this reauthorization occurs. They've tried to maintain the structure of Perkins. There are some nuances and differences, and once there is a reauthorized bill, we'll certainly be providing technical assistance about those changes, but they're updating the accountability measures and aligning things more closely with WIOA, and providing greater collaboration between colleges and businesses. And I know that if you work with CTE, you're accustomed to doing that already. Perkins funding, so the president has already put out his FY18, which, rest assured, it's not next year. So what starts September 1st, we consider, or the feds consider, FY17. So we're talking about the following year. We already know that there's a proposed budget cut of 15% from the current level of funding for Perkins. So that's something to keep in mind as we go forward. Any questions for me? And we'll have Mindy to come up here next. Dwayne. Okay. Thank you.
Good morning. I see this introduction slide didn't get updated. It should have my co-presenter's name on it, Dwayne Hiller. Apologies for that. In this part of the workshop, I'm going to go over with Dwayne the basic RFA, kind of give you an overview of it with an emphasis on institutional planning for your annual Perkins program, developing your application, and managing the grant throughout the year. Now, we've geared this presentation toward newcomers, but we hope more experienced staff here might get a little refresher or a tip or two. Now, a couple of notes as we begin. We cover a lot of material in these slides, and I know that. Please don't worry that you're going to miss any details along the way. We will send all of these slides out after today. And the second thing I'll point out is that I know these slides are text heavy. We received comment last year on the feedback for the workshop that we really could just ditch some of the text and incorporate some more graphics and make it more visually interesting. I'm very sympathetic to that. The reason the text-heavy presentation remains is that it is intended to serve as a resource to you afterward. So I haven't gone with short phrases. I've stayed with pretty detailed explanations of what I'm talking about. Now write down your questions for lunchtime Q&A, and if we have any time left over at the end of this presentation, we'll take a few questions. And let me go ahead and dive in. These are the basic parts of the RFA. You can see how it's organized there. Now we're going to focus on Section 7 in this presentation, preparing your annual application, and laying out grant management requirements in that section, and also Section 8, which dictates how the coordinating board will evaluate each application. Now, here are the appendices that Dwayne and I will be referring to during this presentation. And now I'll give you 3 reasons why you should really know your RFA well. Don't keep it in a drawer. Don't fail to download it to your desktop. Keep it where you can get hold of it. One reason to know the RFA well, it's a legal document, okay? See that word contract highlighted there? That's an excerpt from the RFA. That word's highlighted there because it is a contract with an approved application and a signed NOGA. You've got a contract with the state that requires you to carry out the plan approved in your application and to abide by all terms of the RFA. Okay? It also binds us to certain actions. We will do oversight of your sticking to the requirements of the RFA, and that includes, by extension, requirements of uniform grant guidance. Okay. Second reason to know the RFA well is that it changes every year. Sometimes it changes because regs change. Sometimes it changes because our agreement with TEA, of whom we are a subrecipient for Perkins funds, sometimes our agreement changes. Sometimes situations arise during a year that make us realize we need to make something more clear in the RFA. Here you see a recap of last year's changes. And I won't read them all to you because I read them to you last year as this year's new changes. They still stay in effect, okay? And here's what's new this year. We have made it, and all of them just make something more clear than it was. There's nothing really substantive in the changes. We've clarified that Schedule B is for institutional employees only. We've clarified, or we've added, but it's been the case anyway, that Schedule F equipment orders should be submitted to suppliers no later than April 30th, just as we ask that you do for Schedule C capital equipment orders. And activities referred to in Appendix K refers to any major changes to program activities, but also if you want to change grant activity title. Okay? And I'll move along to schedules, or to the next slide. Final reason to know your RFA well, it gives you guidance for annual planning, gives you major guidance for application development, and it gives you guidance for grant management of your program throughout the year. We're about to talk about each of those in detail. Dwayne will begin by talking with you about annual planning.
you. Good morning. Want to talk about, particularly about Section 6 of the RFA. Section 6 provides a conceptual framework for planning your Perkins program every year. It consists of the statutory purpose for the Perkins program, which is, of course, educating students who enroll in CTE, and programs and courses in preparation for high skill, high wage, or high demand occupations. You'll hear those terms throughout. And also the measure by which the success of your program is determined is performance in meeting the 6 core indicators that Donna talked about earlier. In particular, Section 7.3 directs you as the applicant to give primary consideration to improving core indicator performance when you do annual program planning. And then Appendix D has a local plan requirements that ask for not 1, but 2 assurances that applicants are focusing on improving their core indicator performance. Here's some good annual planning examples and what good annual planning looks like. We have core indicator performance, which is central in planning on how to spend the money. The planning is data-driven, and the spending decisions are based on a coherent strategy. All the internal stakeholders are involved in planning from the beginning. Some institutions have standing Perkins committees that meet periodically to evaluate the Perkins program's performance. The planning team sets goals and objectives for improving performance on each core indicator, and also determines departmental and programmatic activities toward achieving objectives and meaningful measures of success for each activity. Altogether, the departments and programs receive fundings for the year, have a clear understanding of their role and their responsibilities. The administrators are responsible for those departments and programs and make sure that they're all on board, and they'll provide appropriate oversight and enforce accountability. Good planning is contrasted to poor planning in these ways. For strong planning, you have an improved core indicator performance driving the process. In weak planning, you're stretching the budget to see how far your money can go, just without any regard to what's being improved or what isn't. Strong planning includes a coherent plan coordinated across several college departments. Poor planning is collection of unmet needs and what we call political decisions. Basically, the person at the college who yells the loudest or the squeakiest wheel. For strong planning, it gets administration, faculty, and staff all on board and all toward a cohesive goal. Weak planning, Perkins remains almost an afterthought for the institution, of course, except to you, the Perkins staff, who it's very important for. Again, good planning is always evident to the coordinating board staff. It shows that in the application's local plan discussion, and it's evident in the coherence of the performance improvement and evaluation plan. Again, we'll go over those sections later. And of course, good planning inevitably results in the positive core indicator performance trends, where we can see, even if you're not meeting the trends, you're getting closer and closer to the goals. Here are some useful RFA sections for planning your grant. Section 7 gives guidance on the content of your application and thus aids you in thinking about how to set the goals, objectives, activities, and target measures toward what? Improved performance on the core indicators. Again, this is the key focus on what the local plan covers. Also, we have Appendix H, which states the statutorily required and permissible uses of funds, and also makes statements about non-permissible uses and administrative costs. I encourage you to read over those closely to make sure if a certain cost is allowable or not, and if certain costs are actually required that you include. You might regard the 9 required uses of funds as 9 specific program areas that must be addressed in your planning. These may be provided through either through Perkins funds or through institutional funds, or through both. Institutions are not required to divvy up the Perkins funds across all 9 areas, but they should target funds in a balanced manner across several of these areas. And again, to make sure all 9 areas are covered. The permissible uses of funds are optional and may be relevant in achieving improved core indicator performance, and you should at least be familiar with them. Appendix I gives helpful and very detailed guidance in what you may and may not spend Perkins funds on. The coordinating board staff can provide assistance if you have questions during the planning that you can't find an answer to in Appendix I. Finally, Appendix J gives you statute-based guidance on the difference between supplementing and supplanting. You'll be hearing that a lot, throughout the grant process. It's critical that you know the difference and that you get any questions about supplanting answered during your annual program planning. Again, the CB staff are always happy to assist you. And I will go back to Mindy to talk about developing the application.
Show of hands, how many of you are directly involved in application development right now? Yeah. Okay. Some of you have heard what I had to say here before, some of you haven't. I hope it will be useful to all of you. I want you to remember that we have all got our ears tuned to our email and our phones turned up right now so we can answer any questions you've got. So let me talk about the guidance the RFA gives you in preparing your application. Okay. Section 7, Dwayne's talked about Section 7 in terms of its guidance in planning for next year's program. Now, I'm going to begin with it here in order to emphasize the requirements it lays out for all parts of your application, including the format. Okay? Now, Dwayne's already talked about adequate planning prior. It should go on for months before application development begins. A good application does show good planning. Okay? Can you read that? What does it say? An approvable application follows the format. I'm going to linger here on this for just a second. I counted a couple of years ago how many pages of basic Perkins application we received. It was right at 1,500. 1,500 pages to read. Okay, if you don't follow the format, we have paragraphs that are a page and a half long. We have budget line items that we really can't assign to CTE. We have all sorts of things that make our job harder. Follow the format. Takes a little effort, and if you do it right the first time, you don't have to do it over. Now, I'm going to talk about strong application development and contrast it with weak application development in the same way we did with planning, okay? Strong application development, it does articulate the institution's coordinated plan for its next year's program. Weak application development just sort of throws stuff out there that makes it sound good, and it sounds like it's been put together to make it sound good, but it's not really showing us that you have thought through a Perkins program. Strong application development follows the current RFA's requirements for content, what you should be saying, and form, what you shouldn't be saying or doing. Weak application development just sort of writes over last year's application. It's not necessarily up to date. Does the minimum necessary to get the grant in, to get the money, but we're not able to have strong confidence that you've got a coherent program going on. It may be compliant, but it's not strong. Okay? Now, let me go on with further RFA guidance. Okay, Section 8 of the RFA tells you how we will review the application, And I say we will because the RFA requires it of us. It's binding on us too. We're going to review it for completeness and for adherence to the requirements of the RFA. If your formatting or what you're saying isn't consistent with the RFA, we are going to send it back to you. If you have left out critical parts that we need to see there, we are going to send it back to you. And I'll elaborate on that further as we go. Okay? And I always say this, do it right the first time. I used to be part of a dealership family years ago, auto dealership. And there was a big sign in the auto shop. It said, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, when will you have time to do it over? I think, that's kind of applicable to most things we do. And, you do want to submit it, and aren't you ready to forget about that thing when you finally submit it? We want you to be able to forget about it until you get the approval. Okay, and I'll go on to parts of the application. I'm going to focus on these three in blue: local plan, performance improvement evaluation plan, PIEP or PIP as we call it, and your budget. Let me start with local plan. Now, the local plan describes your institution's plan for next year's Perkins program. It serves as the framework for what you're going to lay out in the PIP and in the proposed budget. Okay, and its contents are 12 questions that are required by federal statute, and one that is our option, addresses 60 by 30 TX completion. Here's what we like to see in a local plan. It's not pages and pages and pages of words and words and words and words. It may be long, it may be short, but whatever it is direct, to the point, and it addresses all parts of the application. Okay? And here are some common reasons we send it back. All parts of a question have not been addressed. Here are some common things that don't get addressed. And response 3, you don't give us an example of an MOU you have with a secondary institution for a CTE program. That's an example. Response 5, you don't tell us. You do tell us who your stakeholders are, but you don't tell us how you communicate the requirements of the Perkins program to them and the core indicators. That's just an example. And failure to give clear, direct answer to the question. Surplus or irrelevant material, or it's disorganized and difficult to follow. So, it helps to read it back to yourself. It helps to make sure you do have a coherent plan in place. A thing we particularly like to see in the 2 questions that address the core indicators, lay those out for us indicator by indicator. Tell us what you're going to do and emphasize those that you have not met in the past year, certainly if you have not met in the last 3 years. Okay? Let me move on to the performance improvement and evaluation plan, and I'm going to address improvement and evaluation individually. Okay, section 7.3 and Appendix E are your guideposts in the RFA for development of the PIP. Appendix E gives you an illustration of a good one. Okay? Now, this section of your application should be consistent with your local plan. Here's where you're laying it out in detail. You're giving us, in essence, a blueprint for what you talked about more generally and conceptually in the local plan. And it should be related clearly to your proposed budget. It's got two parts, as I said. And I'll talk about the improvement plan now. Now, the improvement plan itself, the narrative section, I'm going to go through each one of these, and I'm going to ask, how many of you took freshman comp ever, even if you took it 1,000 years ago? Okay, like me. I did teach it for about 150 years, but that was in a past life. Now, remember that your essay in freshman comp began with an introduction. Your summary is an introduction. The summary of your improvement plan is an introduction. It should discuss the challenges you see with meeting your core indicators for the coming year, should preview how you're going to address that particular core indicator, and it should preview the major activities and the major budget items. Just mention them in brief. Tell us what you're going to tell us, in other words. Now, key programs and activities, here's where you should go into detail and tell us each one of the key activities you have targeted specifically to that core indicator and justify its presence in that PIP for that core indicator. In other words, make your case here. And skip a line between each key activity, please, so we can read it. And then the specific budget items, or the key budget items, same way. I'm going to note here that you don't have to put everything in your budget in the PIP, and I hope everybody knows that. Give us the major budget items that you are targeting on specific core indicators and justify their presence. Please skip lines and please indicate which schedule your budget items are on. If you don't, we're going to send it back. Okay? Okay, the three parts should show consistency. And rule of three, if you haven't met a core indicator in the past 3 years, you have to have 3 key strategies and activities, and you have to have 3 key budget items. Okay? Here are reasons we send it back. Little or no connection between the 3 parts. Looks like maybe the key activities and strategies got updated, but not the summary. Yeah. Doesn't follow the required format. Explained in 7.3 and illustrated visually in Appendix E. Okay? Improvement plan. Evaluation plan. It also has 3 parts. Your strategies and activities, that's how you're going to carry out your improvement plan. Your timeline, that's your time frame for each strategy and activity. Now, this is important, and I've got it up there in so many words, and I'll say it here. Divide year-long activities into subcomponents. Some of you are nodding. Have we said that 1,000 times and you're tired of hearing that? Got to say it for the brand new guys. You can't have a year-long activity. If you do, it can be like the overall, and then you must subdivide it down below that. Okay? Your target measures. This is the planned outcome. We look at these very closely. This is what you think that particular activity is going to accomplish that will contribute to improved performance on the core indicator. Okay? Now let me ask you a question. Will purchasing equipment by itself make a program better? Will it help you meet core indicators? If you purchase equipment and students use it toward a licensure exam or to gain proficiency, will that help you meet a core indicator perhaps? Yeah, that's what your target measures should be. We look very closely at these. They should be measurable. A 50% increase, that's big. Let's say a 5% increase over a specific time last year. 25 more students this year than last year. Retention rate, 25% increase, let's be ambitious, over the previous fall. Things like that. Specificity, we'll send it back if we don't see it. Okay, and these are key important things. Evaluate. Do not try that word at home. Evaluate all elements of your improvement plan. If you say it up there, evaluate it down here. And rule of 3, if you haven't met a core indicator in the last 3 years, we need 3 activities in the evaluation plan.
And that's a minimum of 3 activities. There can be more than 3.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, that's a minimum of 3. That's important. You're welcome to have 10, but you have to have at least 3. Okay. Here's some common reasons we send back evaluation plans. Doesn't account for programs, activities, and specific budget items in the improvement plan. We can't see that the activity in the evaluation plan has any relevance to the core indicator. Now, here's a tip. If you're running an activity across more than one core indicator, PIP, make it relevant to each specific core indicator. Don't say the thing for 5P2 that you said for 2P1, okay? Make it relevant to 5P2. Show us how you planned for it to be relevant. Okay, we need specific performance criteria in the target measure and no year-long timelines. Now, this bottom one is important. Make sure you're going to measure your success on your target measure on data that can be collected before you submit your final report, okay? Once in a while, somebody tells us that next year they're going to get the results, and I guess they'll mail them to us, I don't know, but we need for you to be able to evaluate it before your final report. Okay. And finally, let's go to the budget here, and I'm going to go through helpful sections, 7.4, detailed guidelines for each of the budget schedules, and you've got examples of how they should look, okay? In other words, how they should be formatted. Okay, some things I can say about the budget. It should be consistent with your local plan. If you've got something major in your budget this year, you might work it into your local plan so we know why it's there. If you're going to buy a fire truck, show us how that fire truck's going to help you in the local plan before you put that $50,000 baby in the budget, okay? Be good to attach that $50,000 baby to something in the PIP, too. And it reflects your institution's strategic plan. You should have strategic emphases every year or running for several years as part of your annual Perkins planning. Let your budget reflect that.
And Mindy, before you move on, I wanted to say we're having some problems with the broadcast and the people that are out watching it by the webcast. There is a distortion of the slides and the images. We are working on that. We have a break here in 15 minutes. Hopefully that it can get cleared up during that time. And we're sorry about that.
Thank you, Donna. Anybody watching out in the field need only email us and ask us for the slides after the day, and we will send them to you if you're watching via webcast. Okay. Okay, and I'll talk a little bit about each individual schedule, then I'll turn it back over to Dwayne. Schedule A. I'll emphasize here that you need to, I won't read this whole screen to you, but you need to indicate whether positions are full-time or part-time, and you need to show the percentage of each employee's full or part-time activities that will be spent on Perkins. If they're part-time and they're going to spend 30% of their time on Perkins, put that PT in the description of the position and put that 30% in that percentage column. Okay? Make sure you indicate, too, that the position is CTE dedicated, okay? That needs to be explicitly clear. And there's a model shown in 7421, okay? Schedule B, here are some key points about Schedule B, and again, I won't read all the slides to you, but I'm going to emphasize that you must have a written policy and procedure set of policies and procedures for your travel. Those policies and procedures should safeguard against reimbursing for travel above the federal GSA rate, okay? On audit, that will be a very important set of written college materials to have. I'll emphasize, too, that travel is for employees only, okay? No execs or administrative staff, but you can't put student travel, well, you shouldn't be paying for student travel except in very rare students or circumstances. You can't put contractor travel over here, okay? All right. Follow that model in 7431, okay? Okay, for Schedule C, capital equipment, that section in the RFA does give the guidance you see here. And I won't read all that to you, but I will emphasize install it and use it during the program year. I did a desk review for some material for an institution a couple of years ago where the institution, through its documentation of purchases, kind of revealed that it had received equipment on August 15th. And you know, if you're audited, that may be a finding. Use it in the classroom during the program year. Now, some details. Equipment with less than a $5,000 cost may go on Schedule C, which is for capital equipment $5,000 over, if your college has local policy that capitalizes at less than $5,000. Okay. A multi-component order that consists of, you know, several parts to one item, like a SIM station, and those parts or some of those parts don't add up or don't cost $5,000 individually. If your college is going to capitalize that as one whole item, you don't have to put those individual parts over on Schedule F. They are one whole item if your college is going to capitalize them that way, okay? Let's see. There's your section for the model. Let me go on over to D. You see the difference between consultants and subcontractors here. I'm going to emphasize on this one that you cannot contract with college employees. Even if they only work for you part-time on a contingent basis, even if they're going to do the work in their off hours, you can't contract with college employees. That's in UGG, in the regs, okay? Follow that format. And if you haven't been made aware of this yet, keep your contracts on file for 7 years. State law changed retention of records to 7 years, I believe, in the 84th legislature. So I'll just point that out to you since it's up there. Schedule F, okay, it's all other costs not included in other schedules. I'll emphasize a point that's come up in the past year. If you provide, or if you buy supplies, provide enough detail, itemized detail, to justify that cost. $8,000 for supplies without sufficient detail to justify that cost is something we're going to send back, okay? And by the same token, if you are budgeting for student services for special populations, childcare, transportation, books, itemize those to estimate that you're going to serve, say, 25 students, going to provide child care for a semester at $400 a semester, something like that, okay? All right. Finally, Schedule, oh, there's your section of the RFA, and I'll move on over to Schedule G. 15 or 5% of direct costs. Use the admin cost calculator or the indirect cost calculator on the Perkins webpage. You do know it's there, don't you? You may be one of these math guys who can do it yourself, but if you're not, you can use that indirect cost calculator. That's what we do. And finally, here are the most common reasons we send those budgets back. Okay? We need to see the line item format. We need to see it on the right schedule. We need to know that it's CTE dedicated. And we need to have a per unit or per student cost, okay? These are things that'll have it returned to you. And I will turn it over to Dwayne. Whoops. Grant management.
And while we're doing that switch out, I have another announcement for those of you watching the broadcast. We will, at the break time, which is scheduled for 11:15, depending on when Dwayne finishes, we will have to turn the broadcast off for about 10 to 15 minutes because they're going to restart it and see if that won't help with the problems that are being encountered. So thank you and bear with us. Don't forget to turn back on.
So that gives me about 5 minutes to go through the next few slides. Realize that that's quite a lot of information that many has gone over and that I've gone over earlier. And we know that it's a process involving a lot of detail, and we assume that you were all hired because you were all good at attention to detail. I want to come full circle now to remind you that the good planning involving the involvement of all institutional stakeholders can make your job much more manageable. The same is true with grant management. If you have strong institutional planning every year, the local grant management should look something like this. You have faculty, program directors, and other staff follow through on all planned activities. They also keep good records, they collect data, and they report to you in a timely manner when you request it for Perkins reports. Again, this means that equipment must be ordered early so that students get full use of it during the program year. The RFA strongly recommends that all equipment be ordered by April 30th at the latest. This will give it time to be delivered, installed, and then set up for work. I'll make sure that the planned activities and strategies are implemented on schedule, and this is particularly important for activities and strategies that appear on the improvement evaluation plan. And finally, and most critically, that data are compiled as activities and strategies are implemented. You have the data when it's time to report the data, and it also informs planning for the next grant cycle. Perkins staff are able to monitor all grant activities, complete the required reports, and carry out other grant-related duties. And finally, administrators stay informed and enforce accountability as needed. Now I'm going to talk about amendments. Even with good planning, you will typically need to amend your approved application at least once during the year, sometimes more than that. Appendix K provides guidance for amendments, which includes when do you need to file an amendment and when you can simply send an email to your coordinating board program director. The annual amendments deadline, which is always July 1st, and the directions for modifying the budget line items with examples. These directions were new to last year's RFA, and this year we'll be strict in asking you to follow them. And this involves, like, how do you delete, in order to delete an item, you subtract it from the budget, and then you add another budget item. Here are some things to be aware of about amendments. If you don't already know it, you may need to modify the local plan and the performance improvement evaluation plan to show how the requested budget changes will fit into your institution's Perkins plan. If you're modifying an existing line item, keep the grant activity title the same. Line items for supplies are required to include example detail to justify the cost. If you remove an item under grant activity 60 by 30 TX, you need to make certain that your total 60 by 30 TX is still 15% or above of your total grant. And finally, you may not remove a program, activity, strategy, or budget line item that appears in your performance plan for a core indicator your college hasn't met in 3 years, if the removal takes the number down below the minimum of 3. So if you have 3 already and you take 1 out, then you only have 2, that won't be allowable. Most importantly, check your math before you submit the amendment. Now I want to show you some of the most common reasons we return amendments for corrections. If all the changes to your approved application have to comply with the same requirements the application follows, so your amendment has to be the same as your original, follow the same requirements as your original application. All amendments to budgets have to follow the format given in Appendix K. And most importantly, I want to say it again, you need to check your math. For reporting, with the implementation of grant activities and occasional amendments, the reporting forms the third leg of the routine grant management. An institution's reporting is our window into how it manages its Perkins grants. So I'll talk more about reporting in the next section after the break. But now I just want to wrap up the section by pointing out some of the relevant RFA sections here. Appendix G stipulates required reports and gives the annual reporting schedule. For biannual and final reports, these sections of the RFA provide you additional guidance, a visual model, and a statement of required information. Appendix G requires that biannual and final reports must be labeled as such, and that both reports must appear in the final report, and that a line must be skipped between the two. Most of you know and do this already. But just in case you, just a little hint, and I think we have this in the RFA. In order to skip a line when you're typing text into the web application, make sure to do 2 hard returns. Because if you just do 1 hard return, for some reason, it just continues on within the same line. But always put in 2 hard returns, like between each paragraph or between each line item. Here's some cautionary advice about expenditure reports. They should reflect your actual expenditure, with expenditures categorized in your approved budget schedules, and reported administrative accounting for no more than 5% of your reported direct expenditures. Now, the reason we talk about the direct expenditures and the direct amount, some people erroneously base that 5% on the total grant. But it's basically the direct plus the indirect has to add up to the total. So you're actually giving a little bit less than 5% of the total as administrative. It's really 5% of the direct cost. And here's the most common reasons for returning biannual reports. Perhaps the timeline says that you completed an activity, but in your report you say you didn't. Or perhaps one or more target measures haven't been specifically addressed. And sometimes the information isn't labeled to show which reporting period you're in. Most common reasons for returning expenditure reports are that the reported capital expenditures exceed your approval in Section C budget. Perhaps you owe us an amendment in order to get that amount increased. The reported administration cost exceeds the reported direct expenditures. Or you might have an amount in column D for a budget, but there's no approved funds in that budget item. Okay, kind of in conclusion, between Mindy and myself, our goal in this presentation has been to raise your awareness of how important the RFA is to every stage of your Perkins grant, from the beginning of the application development to the program management. Together with your approved application, the RFA is your college's contract with the coordinating board. You are responsible for carrying out the activities you commit to in your application and for the managing your grant in accordance with the terms of the RFA.
And I'll just add that we refer to the RFA throughout the year in advising you on your grants. We want you to refer to the RFA through the year yourself. It's kind of how we stay on the same page, if you will, stay on the same page of the RFA. And with that, I'll conclude and thank you for your time and attention. And Donna, do you have anything before we take a break?
Yeah, don't forget, we do have some information about the leadership grants that are on the front table up here. As I mentioned earlier, the restrooms are down the hall, and there's still plenty of snacks over there, so let's take a 15-minute break. And again, those of you watching, the webcast will be shut down for 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.